All right, I think we're back with probably the second most looked forward to division for us to preview is the AFC West because so much has changed in this division in one offseason to the point where we are genuinely concerned that three teams are going to make it from the playoffs from this one division. And the football that's going to come out of this division when there's going to be, obviously each team has to play each other twice. I mean, we are talking many all-stars on the field at once together in these just divisional matchups. I mean, usually we don't get these kind of matchups unless, like the Bills go to the Chiefs or the Packers go to the Buccaneers or something like that. We get, 8 of these
And
this
quite
year.
frankly, I could see all four of these teams making the playoffs now that there's the seventh playoff spot.
Right. Well, because for me, and we'll touch on this when we get to the NFC North about what our actual playoff predictions are. I mean, I do have 3 of them. And we didn't go into the intricacies of like tiebreakers or whatnot for the sake of our projections or whatnot. And with your Patriots prediction, it actually bumped out the Raiders. So, but you have 2 of them. But for sure, easily could see 3 of these making it. But so to recap where we have it at, we both have the Chiefs finishing first. I have them at 14-3, and David has them at 13-4. But then we disagree on the placements of the other 3. I have the Raiders at second, and then the Broncos and Chargers tied at 11-6. David has the Chargers at 12-5, followed by the Raiders 11-6, and the Broncos at 10-7. So every team we are projecting to finish at least 3 games over 500. I
Yeah, we're really
and
splitting hairs with the differences on ours. Outside of both of us having the Chiefs at the top, everything
which
else
is
is
not even a certainty either, because
no,
their
no ball
defense didn't
bounces.
get their defense didn't get any. They didn't get much better in the offseason. You can make the argument that the loss of Tyrann Mathieu made them worse, and they did have to add the safety Reed from Houston, but they lost Tyreek Hill as well, and they did add Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but like I'm not even convinced the Chiefs are going to win the division. Like you just don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see how this all plays out. Um, I still firmly believe, even though I don't have the Raiders necessarily making the playoffs, I think this could finally be the year. Outside of the what was it, 2016 or 2017, Derek Carr had a really good season. Um, I think this could finally be the year he kind of busts through that ceiling a little bit. But at the same time, this is also we've all seen what Justin Herbert can be. Uh, but this might be the year he busts through that next level of potential as well. So it's going to be crazy to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and we're talking. You look at the division. I think we can safely say that they have 4 of the top 12 quarterbacks, depending on where you put Derek Carr in your list and Russell Wilson in your list. I know people are really high on Mahomes and Herbert, but you're talking at least 4 of the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. Each team has at least one perennial target. So the Chiefs have Kelsey, and one could argue maybe Juju Smith-Schuster. You got the Raiders, who have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. The Broncos have Jerry Jeudy, who I still think is on the cusp of breaking out. I'm really curious to see what he can do in an actual offense and not some Drew Lock led offense. And then the Chargers have Austin Eckler, who's amazing. The Broncos do have Javonte Williams. I'll give him some credit too. But the Chargers have Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, who are all very good at what they do. So, and then on the defensive side, Chiefs, they have a couple pretty good players. The Raiders added Chandler Jones, who I think is going to be one of the off-season signings of the season. I think he is an absolute animal. The Broncos added Gregory from Dallas, so that made them better. And then the Chargers added Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson to already complement, Derwin James and Joey Bosa. So, I mean, everybody in this division got well, maybe barring the Chiefs, everybody in this division got significantly better. So now it's a question of did they raise themselves enough to actually compete with the Chiefs?
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I think about it. You just talked about the Chargers defense. Uh, they're starting to inch up there for me as the most likely to dethrone the Chiefs this year.
Well, it's the problem with the Chargers, and I've talked to you about this, is that they always find ways to lose games in really annoying fashions. And I know that was kind of a product of, like Philip Rivers used to do that all the time, where they would just lose in stupidity with an interception or something. So to me,
It's
it doesn't seem to be like a coach thing, or it doesn't seem to be a quarterback thing. They just find ways to lose in stupid fashion. And I'm convinced it's just the franchise itself is cursed somehow.
I'd tell you what, us in the Midwest, you're always guaranteed right at the end of that 3:30 window to flip to CBS, and you're getting bonus coverage of the Chargers in a last-second dash to try to score a touchdown to take the lead or tie the game. Without
Yeah.
fail, you get a handful of those every single year.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like it's a franchise specific thing. It's not a Herbert issue or Rivers issue, coach issue. It's just like they just find themselves in those situations more often than not. And then I'm curious to see how maybe you could touch on this more with the Broncos hiring Nathaniel Hackett and now adding Russell Wilson. How much better do you think this team's going to be now versus a Vic Fangio kind of defensive led team?
Yeah, their offense is obviously going to take a step forward just between Russ himself and then adding Nathaniel Hackett, I think, is a huge plus. I just am not still a huge believer in their weapons. I know you mentioned you thought Jerry Jeudy could take that next step, um, but it sounds like you might have a little bit more faith in him than I. But again, maybe that's because he's been stuck in this Drew Lock offense. So either way, their offense is gonna take that next step. I'm just curious to see how long it takes Hackett and Russell to gel in a very efficient manner. Sorry, COVID brain is getting to me.
Well, and I think another epic part of the AFC West this upcoming season is they have to play the NFC West. So we're going to get the Rams get to play all these teams, the 49ers get to play all these teams. The Seahawks are having 4 losses coming their way, unfortunately. The Cardinals with Kyler Murray, it's going to be a fun matchup. So we get a once every 4 year London Derby, which can be pretty fun. First at SoFi Stadium, which I think is going to be really cool. And it's kind of sad we don't get the Bay Area matchup anymore, but I think there's still going to be some hard feelings between the Raiders and the 49ers. Those were always super interesting when they would meet. And I know like 49ers fans would go to Oakland and just get jumped. So
Well, it's crazy. Even looking forward, I know we're going to talk NFC West here in a second, but even looking at how good we have these 4 teams finishing out, the NFC West, we don't have anyone with a horrible record other than the Seahawks. So it's like, even though there's going to be this West Coast, fighting tooth and nail against one another, all of them have their merits, man.
yeah, and it's kind of like it kind of reminds me of an SEC schedule, or it's like you in specifically the SEC West, it's like you play at Ole Miss, then you host Texas A&M, then you go to Florida, then you host Alabama, then you play tennis, and it's just like this gauntlet of a regular season where you just get battered. And I feel like the AFC West and the NFC West are just going through the gauntlet with their schedule this year. And I think as a football fan, it's going to be so exciting.
So before we transition away from the AFC West, out of these 4 teams, who do you think is most likely to be the letdown to finish below 500 and be out of playoff contention by early December, late November?
The only reason I wouldn't say the Broncos is because I don't feel like it would be a letdown if they ended up 9-8 or 8-9 or whatever. Just because, again, I think they have a lot of talent, but if we're comparing them to the other 3, they're probably the least talented. I do think they're going to do well outside of the division, though. But when you're talking about a letdown, to me, part of that is what are the expectations for them, and I could totally see the Chiefs ending up 10-7. I mean, it's just there's no guarantee that they're going to be the same dominant force that we're used to seeing. I have a lot of faith in Mahomes. I have a lot of faith in Andy Reid, but can compete. I know the Raiders and the Chargers were no, pansies last year, but they all got better. So now, can they compete when they have all of these teams getting more talented in their division, or are they going to be in this lull? So I do think I still have the Chiefs doing well, but they could easily have a lot of those wins flip to losses if they don't execute correctly. And I also on the Chiefs, I mean, it wasn't really until like week 6 or week 7 last year that they really got in their groove. I mean, that offense for the first part of the season last year was like pulling teeth, and it was
Later than
not
that,
used.
even
Was
later
it?
than that, because even when they
It
beat Green Bay in early November when Rodgers was out with COVID, they only beat us by a touchdown. It
yeah.
was like a, you know what I mean? It was a very low scoring game.
So yeah, can they not do that again this year? Can they? Because they by the time we got to November, or maybe even December, they were firing on all cylinders. But it took them a little bit to get to that point. So if they do that again this year, they may be having some issues. But again, this division, if we could highlight one outside the NFC North to watch, it's going to be a fun time.